it says in the 1349, you may not issue a permit until you have a certificate of appropriateness from the ARB. The ARB says, we will review this. It says here, application, administrative procedures, administration. The following procedures are established to govern the processing of an application for a building permit and other municipal authorization. Upon receipt of the application, upon receipt for a building permit.
But we're not asking for a building permit, and we're not asking for a demolition permit. We're getting a certificate of appropriateness after the ARB went through the process of deciding whether it was historically significant or not, and then they changed their mind and said it's not unanimously.
Upon receipt of application for a building permit or other municipal authorization, that would be demolition, other municipal authorization.
But we haven't applied, because we don't have a plan.
Upon receipt, the building commissioner shall promptly transmit the application to the Architectural Review Board for determination of applicability set in 1170-03. Now, 1170-03 says that this is the procedure that the ARB has to follow to look, is it historically significant? Is it going to damage the property next door? What are you going to do? ARB is not going to issue the permit. They're only going to ask the right questions. Then when they ask the right questions, they say, yeah, that's logical, tear it down. But they haven't seen a site plan. And if you look at 1170, it does say, it says right in there, that the application, based upon, the application shall consist of the site plan and the demolition plan. Shall consist. Now, I didn't draw this
Excuse
up.
me, Mrs. Gash, what section of 1170 states that?
I believe it's 1170-03 or 5.
That's fine then.
Where I have it right here, I just read 1170-07. This is, you know, we can't decide what to do if we don't have copies of these things. This is a flow chart.
This is the procedure for a building permit. We're not talking about building permits.
Or a municipal authority.
Now, I'm sorry, could you please refer to 1170-07, which section refers to a site plan and a demolition plan?
Application for a building permit, okay? Application shall, I don't have the law, but it's in there.
Which section are you referring to, please?
Let's see, maybe I do have it. 1349-07.
Okay, that's not 1170, and 1349 is for a demolition permit.
Go from 1349 over to 1170, and then you go back and forth. That's why the chart goes this way. That's why it goes back and forth.
But where in 1170 does it say anything about having the site plan? I don't see it on here. I have a copy of it here.
Non-residential building permit for corporate or zoning.
I feel like
Here we
we're,
go, 1349. I don't want to belabor this. I'm just trying to tell you where we're finding this.
I feel like we're all on different pages.
1349-07.
I feel like we're all on different pages here. We've got the ARB
Okay, we brought it all to your attention.
issued a certificate of appropriateness. There is no demolition permit.
And there should
We
be.
have,
Well,
I disagree with you, and we have no immediate plans of demolishing this building. All we have, just one second, all we have is a certificate of appropriateness that says when the property is redeveloped, that is an option. We don't know what's going to happen with that
Can I
building.
read the
There's
law?
not, we're not wheeling down a wrecking ball down.
let me
to
read
that
what
building.
the law says. 1349-07 is demolition procedure. All applicants requesting demolition of a building shall complete a demolition permit application.
So when we
All
get ready to
applicants
do that, we'll-
provided by the building.
We have
Provided-
not asked for a demolition permit.
Listen, I will continue to read and then we can discuss. The application. Okay. The application must. The application, certified by the landowner, must provide for a general information form, which you got. That's where the certified signature comes in. That's the form. Demolition site plan shall consist Listen, you guys can talk all you want, you're doing it backwards, and it's gonna prove it wherever we go. Demolition site plan shall be attached to the application. Attached to the application shall be a site restoration plan with the lot changes due to removal of the structure. Due to removal of the structure, that's demolition of the building. Demolition timeline shall be listed. And how to protect adjacent properties, and the description and anticipated reuse of the property, all before you get a certificate. The ARB does not approve the certificate. They approve the certificate. They do not approve the demolition permit. What does this mean? When do you intend to go to the ARB board?
You were referring to a flow chart that we have no idea. It's not
Okay,
incorporated in our ordinances. It's not incorporated in any type of
It's in
procedure.
your zoning code.
That flow chart is in our
No,
zoning
this is
code.
on your website.
I understand that. We've agreed with you that that may be on the website. We've also agreed with you that that may not be accurate.
Fine, that's fine.
Okay? You're stating that flow chart as if it is law. Okay? This flow chart is a pretty picture that is on our website.
Okay, well then
Okay.
let's look at it or take it down. Maybe we should be deposing the building inspector. Maybe we should be asking him, what do you do when someone knocks on the door and says, I want to demolish a building?
I guess I have a question. You're here tonight to ask us to override the unanimous decision of the ARB for issuing a certificate of appropriateness. We are not talking about a demolition plan or an application for a demolition plan. When I look at,
Oh, what does the application say?
when I look at 114909
Okay.
under F, it simply says applicants must obtain a certificate of appropriateness from the Twinsburg Architecture Review Board prior to granting a demolition permit. It doesn't say that you have to apply an application for a demolition. It just says
Okay.
applicants must get this.
Why
this-
did you apply with demolition for
I
a
didn't
demolition?
apply for demolition. I asked
Sure
for a
you did.
certificate of appropriateness.
With what? Take a look at what they approved. They approved a demolition. Right there it is, it's got an X there, that's what you asked for. You went to the ARB board and you said, we're not gonna restructure it, we're not gonna reuse it, we're gonna demolish it, and you said yes. Or, I mean, they said yes.
Yeah, as a first step, so maybe down the line we do that, as we get with the development partner that we've talked
You
about for
wasted
almost
4
a year.
months of the ARB's time because you're not sure what you're gonna do with the building. Right there it says, there's an X in front of
Actually,
demolition.
Now that we have the certificate of appropriateness, when we do come up with that site plan and that partner, as we go through that process, we've already got one of the boxes checked.
Who's gonna decide
And
about
then
this?
we're going to apply for a demolition permit if that's what
You
they
already
decide.
applied for the certificate to demolish.
It says you have to have a certificate to go through that process. It doesn't say
As
that you.
soon as the certificate is handed to your building inspector, as soon as it says, the building inspector cannot issue a permit until he has a certificate of appropriateness that is appropriate to demolish. That's the process. I didn't make it. It says you have to have a certificate of appropriateness before you can demolish.
Right.
That's clear.
That's what we're doing.
And
You know,
we have
we
one,
can
so if
go
we go
on
that
and on.
route, we can.
All we're asking,
ready.
I think, here at this point, what I'd like
Don't go on and on.
is I would like the council to reconsider this and start over and do it right. We're not saying don't tear it down. Do it right. Quote your laws. You tell us when you say, here's where we are, here's where we are. Nobody's done that.
No, we did. It's right here.
That's what we're saying. You're asking to tear a building down, and you
yet.
did ask for demolishing. See, look at the chart. I didn't make that up. And I'm gonna tell you what's really sad, is when you can't even use a current law. You know, Mr. Yates, you claim that these are not laws. They're not, they're on the website. Let me tell you something.
You're misquoting me, Ms. Gadosh.
All right,
I
well, it
said
doesn't
Your
matter.
picture is not law. That's what I said.
Oh,
The
it's fine.
picture you keep holding up is not law,
Right,
right?
okay, fine.
Okay, then don't misquote me.
1349 is law,
So,
and it falls.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
so what this says, Ms. Gadosh, is that the Architectural Review Board in the certificate of appropriateness has indicated that the proposed environmental change, alteration, relocation or demolition is approved if we go through this process. That's what it says.
No, there's
It
an X
doesn't-
there. There's an X there for what they want.
Okay.
See it? It says demolition. Do you see what it says at the top there, 1162?
Yes, I do.
Do you know that that's not a law in our books?
I do not know that as of today.
Well, I thought we already got that answered. It's not in the zoning code.
I was probably listening instead of writing.
Okay. Well, we've exhausted everything I have to say. I can tell you one thing. I'm not opposed. If you have to tear the thing down, tear it down. But I'm concerned that if we're not following procedures in demolition, we got ourselves in a mess. Because we spent $3 million to clean up Chrysler. Was there demolition permits? I don't know. Corbett Farm, we were in court for months. Was there a demolition permit? I know that 3 or 4 times the Architectural Review Board had them coming back and forth and back and forth. And I want you to remember just one thing, and I'm going to close with this.
Okay.
When your ARB members say, we don't have applications for any of this, in 14 years, no one has given them to us, that's a signal that you better pay attention to. Not me, your minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. I didn't mean
Yes,
to go on
ma'am.
this long, but I have a passion about doing this right, that's all.
Lawrence Sengstock, 2704 Arbor Glen Drive. I'm here tonight just to kind of summarize, because there's been so much bandying back and forth and disagreement back and forth. And I spent a lot of years in government. You people have been on council a long time. Everything that the mayor, the administration do in this city is granted by the people authorizing a charter which authorizes you as our representatives to create laws through ordinances. All of these were done and created. And I believe what the real short story here is the city failed to follow the proper procedure. You're supposed to start at, you don't go spend the money and then come to council and ask for an appropriation. You come to council first, you get authorization from city council to do this. City council, in my opinion, would have started this process by saying, look, if we have this building and we want to say at some point in time we want to demolish it, you can't just demolish a public building. It's a value of $2.4 million. It's also going to cost us money as residents to do it. So whether or not the building stays up isn't even the real point. The point is you got to follow the procedures, the application. When you're going to build, you got to get a zoning permit. Then you got to get a building permit. In order to get the building permit, you've got procedures. Those procedures are guidelines for council to follow, for the administration to follow. And when you take them out of sequence, you eliminate a lot of steps. One, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if the city council took legislation to say, look, whether we have a deed restriction or not, we're going to tear that building down. We want to authorize the mayor, the building commissioner, we want to authorize Mr. Finch. Go get the applications, draw up the plans, draw up the site plan, just like you would do in building a house. You don't go and say, look, I'm going to try and go out there and do the precursor for a developer. That's not your duty. Your duty, in my opinion, is to sit there and follow the rules. That's all that is being discussed in the short story. If the city were to start with enabling legislation from council and proceed through the application process and then go for your certificate of appropriateness from the ARB board, then you can have these discussions as to when do we do something in this city without having a plan? I mean, you know, the old saying is that those that fail to plan, plan to fail. And if without a plan, without a site plan, and telling people what's going on, that's what I sense. And I'm not speaking for that building. I really have no interest in that building, but I do have an interest in our city following the laws. I follow the laws. I want my council and everyone else to follow those same laws and procedures. They're there to safeguard everybody so that everybody knows what's going on, that there's not this unknown or I'm not sure what to do. There's a lot of confusion. It's chaos, and it creates by not following the exact steps in the exact sequence. If somebody's tearing down another commercial building in this city, I certainly hope that our building commissioner and everybody that's involved follow those same steps. That's what they're there for. I mean, you do a budget this way, you do everything else the city does in an orderly fashion by ordinance, authorization, application, and follow it through. Take the steps in sequence. Don't try to circumvent it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we speak or
I have something.
you have something to say, I do too?
Yeah, Mr. Maestros, I wanted to register maybe even a shorter version of what I heard tonight. The contention seems to be that apparently they think an application should have been filed before seeking the certificate of appropriateness, and the city's position is the certificate of appropriateness comes first, then you go after the application. Am I correct?
I think you're correct on both counts, that is the position that's been argued on behalf of the Old School Committee, and I believe that they are saying that the demolition permit should have been applied for prior to the certificate of appropriateness. Yes. I disagree with that, but I think that's what's being
Yeah,
stated.
okay. And our position is, the first step is the certificate of appropriateness, and that's what we did.
Our position is 134909 specifically states applicants must obtain a certificate of appropriateness from the Twinsburg ARB prior to the granting of a demolition permit. That's extremely clear.
Okay.
Yeah. This is what I'm holding in my hand as well, and it's building code. It says those exact words Mr. Maestros is saying. So I think the confusion is the information that's getting out that isn't accurate, and that's our problem here. It's written right here, and that's what the residents need to read, not what your interpretation of it is. It's as simple as applicants must obtain a certificate of appropriateness from the Twinsburg Architectural Review Board prior to the granting of a demolition permit. It's right here.
Which should also include site plans and.
No, that's not what it says.
Not what it says.
It doesn't say that. That's what you're adding into it, and
and-
that's where
and
this
that's
mess
not even-
is.
That's not even the last thing I want to say. I had one last thing to say. The foundation of this is that the building shouldn't even be in bad condition. It shouldn't be even up for demolition. According to the deed restriction, you guys got that building for $1 from the school board. It says that you do not have the right to tear that down. For as long as the city owns that building, it shall remain a public building. Not a pile of public rubble, but a public building. You want to sell that thing, you make your behind-the-scenes deals with your developer and let him tear it down, but you're not to use taxpayer money to tear that building down and then turn it over to a developer in a sweetheart deal. That is clear on the deed restriction. That's the one thing that's there, clear as a bell, one sentence.
I'd like to just make one comment, and I can speak loud enough, I don't need a microphone, we'll all the way around the building again. You're correct in one assumption, that you do go for a certificate of appropriateness prior to a permit. But prior to issuing any permit, ask your building commissioner if he issues a building permit before he has an application for that permit, he has a site plan for that permit, and he gets a zoning permit. All of those take place before the permit is issued. No permit is usually issued without an application. So that's what.
Again, this is your interpretation of it. This isn't ours.
Yeah.
This is not a weird,
Interpretation, it says
it doesn't say
the
that.
director has to admit. Let us know, anytime the city issues a permit prior to an application with plans and designs being put in.
For the demolition.
If I could be clear, a permit has not been
Permit
issued.
hasn't
Yeah,
been.
it hasn't been issued. That's what you guys don't get.
Apply through the application process.
But you're arguing.
After
Agreed.
you get,
Jumping around.
after you get the certificate of appropriateness, we do that.
We do not,
After.
we would not require someone who has a building that they want to have the architecture review board look at for a certificate of appropriateness, go through the expense, the time, and the effort to develop a site plan, do all that work, spend all those funds before they even know if they can demolish it. That doesn't make any sense to me, that we would go down that path and tell someone, go spend thousands and thousands of dollars, come back to us with that application, a site plan, everything that we need for a demolition permit, then we'll decide if we're gonna send you to get a certificate of appropriateness, and if you get denied that, then chalk it up as wasted
luck.
funds and good luck to you.
Time out. Let me ask this question. When you do development in this town, are you telling me that you changed the zoning, you issued the permits, and you asked for all of that before you get a plan, before you get a site plan? I've never seen that in any government agency in my life. You have to apply.
We're talking about demolition right now.
Absolutely, a demolition. You folks are talking about two things. One, you want to go and see, can we get a certificate of appropriateness to tear down a historical building before we have any plans, before we have any site plans? And what is the purpose of that? How can you even act as an ARB board initially that says, we really don't have a plan, we don't have a site plan, we just want to know that if you get somebody who wants to develop that, we can get the approval to tear the building down before you go through the entire process. That process exists, so you can have a plan and a site plan with which to make an informed decision on whether or not you want to